Hello, you're watching Broadcasting Scotland. It's Scotland at 7 on Wednesday, the 1st of June. I'm Hugh Stewart. Good evening, thanks for joining me. Main stories tonight will be on an opinion poll on Scottish independence, but more on that in a couple of minutes. But first of all, I'm going to begin with a roundup of the latest from Russia's illegal war in Ukraine. Today brings us to day 98. And Russia has said that the US decision to supply advanced rocket systems and munitions to Ukraine was extremely negative and would increase the risk of a direct confrontation. US President Joe Biden has confirmed that he will send the more advanced, longer range rocket systems to Kyiv, a critical weapon that the Ukrainian leaders have been asking for as they struggle to stall Russian progress in the Donbas region. The medium range, high mobility artillery rocket systems are part of a new $700 million tranche of security systems assistance from the US. Serhiy Haidai, who is Ukraine's governor of Luhansk Oblast, has said that Russia now controls 70% of the city of Severodonetsk, which is the main crucible of Russia's attack at the present time. And the key objective of the Russian forces are to control the whole of the Donbas region. President Zelensky has blasted the madness of bombing a chemical plant in Severodonetsk. Given the presence, he says, of large-scale chemical production in that town, Severodonetsk, the Russian army strikes there, including blind air bombing, are just crazy. Local officials said that a nitric acid tank was hit, and they posted images of pink smoke billowing out. President Zelensky said that Ukraine's military forces have had some success near Kherson and in parts of the Kharkiv region. Germany will supply Ukraine with the latest Iris-T air defence system, according to Chancellor Olaf Scholz, following pleas from Kyiv and from German opposition parties to step up heavy weapons deliveries. Denmark votes today in a referendum asking the nation whether it wants to end its decades-long opt-out from common European defence policies. Denmark's Foreign Minister Jeppe Kofod has said that he will ask Parliament tomorrow for Denmark's support for the accession of Sweden and Finland to NATO. Denmark is one of the founding members. Ukraine is working on an international UN-led operation with naval partners to ensure a safe trade route for food exports, according to Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who said that Russia was playing what he called Hunger Games with the world by blocking Ukrainian food exports. On that point, Pope Francis appealed to the authorities to lift the block on wheat exports from Ukraine, saying that grain cannot be used as a weapon of war. The African Union has warned EU leaders that Moscow's blockade of Ukraine's ports risked a catastrophic scenario of food shortages and price rises. Ukraine's giant seed bank is in danger of being destroyed. The genetic code for nearly 2,000 crops rests underground in vaults based near Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine, which has come under intense bombing. Meanwhile, Ukraine face Scotland tonight at Hampden in what's set to be a highly emotionally charged football game down at the south side of Glasgow. The winners will play Wales on Sunday for the final berth in the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. We're doing a short show tonight because that game kicks off in about 40 minutes. Okay, next story. The US, of course, as we've just read out briefly, is going to send advanced rocket systems to Ukraine. Let's hear more on that. President Biden has confirmed that he will send the more advanced rocket systems to Kyiv. This is a critical weapon which the Ukrainian leaders have been asked for as they try to stall Russian progress in the Donbas region. The medium-range, high-mobility artillery rocket systems are, as I said, part of this new $700 million tranche of security support for Ukraine from the US. It will also include helicopters, Javelin anti-tank weapon systems, tactical vehicles, spare parts, and more, according to two senior administration officials. The weapons package is being unveiled today. In a New York Times guest essay published on Tuesday, President Biden said that Russia's invasion of Ukraine will end through diplomacy, but that the United States must provide significant weapons and ammunition in order to give Ukraine the highest leverage at the negotiating table. This package also includes ammunition, counter-fire radar, a number of air surveillance radars, additional Javelin anti-tank missiles, as well as anti-armour weapons, officials said. This move comes after Serhiy Gaidai, the governor of Ukraine's Luhansk province, said that Russian forces had taken control of most of the eastern city of Severodonetsk amid heavy fighting. Mr. Gaidai reiterated calls for residents to stay in shelters after he said that the Russian airstrike had hit that nitric acid tank, causing the release of toxic fumes. In a post on the Telegram app, Mr. Gaidai added a photograph of a large pink cloud over residential buildings. The city's mayor, Alexander Stryuk, said that artillery bombardments were threatening the lives of thousands of civilians still sheltering in the ruined city, with evacuations not possible. Street fighting is underway, he said, adding, the situation is really serious and the city is essentially being destroyed ruthlessly, block by block. Stryuk estimated that about 3,000 people remained in the city out of a pre-war population of about 100,000, but he said it was impossible to keep track of civilian casualties. Excuse me, I don't think I got that number right. Mr. Stryuk said that there were, 13,000, I thought that was wrong. So the mayor reckons there's about 13,000 people in the city of Severodonetsk now, and there were 100,000 there before the war. But he said it was impossible to keep track of civilian casualties amid round-the-clock shelling. He said that more than 1,500 people in the city who died of various causes have been buried since the war began in February. Severodonetsk is important to Russian efforts to capture the Donbass before more Western aid arrives. The city, which is 145 kilometres south of the Russian border, is in an area that's the last pocket under Ukrainian government control in the Luhansk region of the Donbass. The US decision on rocket systems tries to strike a balance between the desire to help Ukraine battle the Russian artillery barrages while not providing arms which could allow Ukraine to hit targets deep inside Russian territory, thus triggering an escalation in the war. The Ukrainians have assured US officials that they will not fire rockets into Russian territory, according to the senior administration officials. President Biden, in his New York Times essay, added, "We are not encouraging or enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. We do not want to prolong the war, just inflict pain on Russia." Okay, now on to that independence referendum poll. A new poll today published for STV shows strong public satisfaction with Nicola Sturgeon. The poll also shows that the cost of living crisis is a priority for Scots, and support for an independent Scotland is now at 50%. The majority back an independence referendum in this parliamentary term, with the referendum by the end of 2023 being the most popular option among those polled, while yes support is now 5% higher than it was during the 2014 referendum, at 50% today. Nicola Sturgeon has the highest satisfaction rating of any party leader of the Scottish and UK-wide parties, with a satisfaction rating of nearly 30% higher than Douglas Ross of the Conservatives. A clear majority, 64%, of Scots believe that they will be worse off under Boris Johnson. SNP's deputy leader Keith Brown said, following the SNP's resounding council elections victory last month, this poll confirms that the people of Scotland continue to put their trust in First Minister Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP Scottish Government to deliver for Scotland. A year ago, the SNP was re-elected by the people of Scotland with a renewed cast-iron mandate to hold an independence referendum in this parliamentary term. A majority of Scots support a referendum, and the majority of people expressing that option wanted to see that referendum take place during this parliamentary term. Public trust the SNP above all other parties to tackle the cost of living crisis, which is a clear priority for Scots, as well as to grow Scotland's economy and manage the NHS and education in Scotland. People look to the UK government to act as their bills soar and struggle to pay for their shopping, but Boris Johnson's government has utterly failed to act. And Keith Brown continued, Westminster has inflicted austerity, a hard Brexit we didn't vote for, and now an ever-deepening cost of living crisis on the people of Scotland that's causing immense hardship across the country. Independence gives Scotland the opportunity to escape that chaos and be a fairer, greener and more equal nation. And now on the economy. New figures released today show that Scotland's economy grew by 1% in the first quarter of 2022, despite public health restrictions in place to tackle the Omicron variant. The first estimates for January to March of this year show economic growth has been driven by increased output in construction and services, with construction up 2.5% and services increasing by 1%. Separate monthly GDP statistics show a 0.3% increase in economic growth in March 2022. The statistics follow the publication of the EY Ernst & Young Attractiveness Survey for 2022, finding that Scotland when it comes to attracting foreign direct investment projects, which are a key driver of economic growth. The Scottish Government has recently outlined plans to focus public finances in the coming years to support their ambition to build a stronger, fairer and greener economy as one of the key priorities of the Resource Spending Review, which was announced to Parliament yesterday. The Resource Spending Review commits to investing almost £880 million in support of the economy, in addition to plans for continuing the inward investment plan to attract more high-quality inward investment in the opportunity areas and to increase export growth. Commenting on these statistics, Economy Secretary Kate Forbes said, "It has been an unprecedented time for Scotland's economy, from managing the many impacts from the pandemic to mitigating the ongoing effects of Brexit and the cost of living crisis, and with inflation reaching a record 40-year high. These statistics show that despite these vast and complex challenges, the public, private and third sectors which make up Scotland's economy are resistant and have continued to grow by 1% in the first quarter of 2024. We will continue to support families and businesses throughout this period, including investing almost £770 million this year through measures such as the Scottish Social Security payment system that are not available elsewhere in the UK. Kate Forbes also said that the Scottish Government is mitigating the bedroom tax and increasing the Scottish Child payment to £25. That figure will come in this autumn. The UK Government needed to do more, she said, with the powers they have to support families and businesses through the cost of living crisis. Now, from Kate Forbes, the Financial Secretary, now into child poverty. More than £23 billion in social security payments are set to be delivered by the Scottish Government over the next 4 years, helping lift children out of poverty and mitigate the rising cost of living. In line with the Scottish Fiscal Commission forecasts, almost £1.8 billion is being committed to the Scottish Child payment, which, as I said earlier, will increase to £25 per eligible child per week when that payment is extended to all under 16s at the end of this year. The Resource Spending Review, published yesterday, also allocates up to £300 million to tackle child poverty and to deliver wider measures to reduce household costs, with separate funding to provide free school meals and to boost parents' career prospects. Finance Secretary Kate Forbes and Social Justice Secretary Shona Robertson today visited St Bernard's Primary in Glasgow. That was this morning, where they heard from parents who had been receiving support through the Scottish Social Security family benefits. And Kate Forbes on this point said, "We are determined that nothing deflects us from our mission to tackle child poverty and to deliver fairer Scotland. Our Scottish Child payment now reaching an estimated, I need to look up that number. The child payment is estimated to reach, I'm just checking that number. 103,000 children, right? The first digit wasn't available. I'll just go over that again. The Scottish Child payment, according to Kate Forbes, is now reaching an estimated 103,000 children, and it's at the heart of this work. This is the most ambitious step of its kind being undertaken anywhere in the UK to put money in the pockets of parents and carers who need it most. And Ms Forbes went on to say, "We are already doing everything in our power to protect families from the cost of living crisis and give them a brighter future. If the UK Government matched our ambition to mitigate those impacts, The support we have prioritised in the spending review would mean that by the year 23-24, there would be around 60,000 fewer children living in poverty than there were in 2017. And Shona Robertson urged everyone to check that they are not missing out on valuable financial support, including the Scottish Government's 5 family benefits. One of these, the Best Start Grant school age payment, is a one-off payment of £267 per child for families in receipt of certain benefits or tax credits, opens for application today. That's the Best Start Grant school age payment. So that's open today. Look at the Scottish Government website if you're eligible for that. Okay, next story on the UK's attempt to process asylum seekers in the East African country of Rwanda. Charities that support asylum seekers say they are documenting a number of suicide attempts among those threatened with being sent to Rwanda. The news comes as UK Home Secretary Priti Patel has announced that the first group of asylum seekers who entered the UK without authorisation will be deported to Rwanda on the 14th of June of this month. Cases include a female Iranian asylum seeker who attempted suicide and who later told charity workers that she took this action because she believed she faced with being offshored to Rwanda. She was, however, hospitalised and rescued. Also, a 40-year-old Yemeni asylum seeker made a video addressed to Boris Johnson and Priti Patel stating that after he arrived in the UK on the 13th of April and found out about Rwanda offshoring plans, he said, "I had no other choice but to kill myself." The Independent newspaper reported the case of an Afghan asylum seeker detained in preparation for being offshored to Rwanda. He said he had attempted suicide to avoid being sent there. The recent death of a young Sudanese asylum seeker in Calais on the 11th of May is under investigation by the French authorities. His friends told charity workers he told them he wanted to take his life because he no longer wanted to live after the announcement about Rwanda offshoring. Claire Mosley, chief executive of the charity Care for Calais, said the prospect of being forcibly sent to Rwanda was a final straw for people who might already be traumatised. Enver Solomon, chief executive of the Refugee Council, called on the Home Office to rethink its offshoring plans. He said, "We have been receiving a number of worrying reports from our services working directly with people in the asylum system about the devastating impact the threat of being expelled to Rwanda is having on them." He said, "We are hearing tragic stories about the severe impact on mental health, including reports of self-harm." The PCS, the Union for Home Office Staff, and several refugees charities have launched legal challenges against the Home Office's Rwanda offshoring plan. A Home Office spokesperson said, "We take every step to prevent self-harm or suicide, which is why asylum seekers have access to a health and social care service from the moment they arrive." Okay, next story on Brexit and Northern Ireland. The UK's special envoy for the Northern Ireland Protocol has said that he told US officials that it has become a threat to the Good Friday Agreement. Conor Burns, Northern Ireland minister assigned to make the UK's case in Washington, shrugged off a threat earlier this month by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to block a US-UK free trade deal if the UK took unilateral action to override the protocol. This protocol, negotiated between the UK and the EU, established customs checks between the island of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Speaker Pelosi said that the UK plans to introduce legislation that would create exemptions to the protocol if they could not be agreed with the EU were deeply concerning, she warned. If the United Kingdom chooses to undermine the Good Friday Accords, then Congress will not support a bilateral free trade agreement. She refers to a free trade agreement between UK and America. On a visit to Washington last week, Conor Burns said there was a disconnect between such threats and the gravity of the issues at stake with the Northern Ireland Protocol. Mr. Burns had visited administration officials and members of Congress with a thick wad of documentation that he says UK businesses have to fill out in order to transport goods from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. The time and cost of such bureaucracy has stopped producers of foods like shortbread and cheese from selling into Northern Ireland. The UK government is asking the EU to agree to exemption to customs checks for goods which are destined to be sold and consumed in Northern Ireland and therefore would not enter the rest of the EU. It has accused Brussels of being inflexible, while the EU Vice President Maros Sefcovic said he had put forward solutions that would substantially improve the way the protocol is implemented. The Democratic Unionist Party, the DUP, has been refusing to enter a new power-sharing administration with Sinn Féin following the elections of the 5th of May without significant changes to the protocol. Mr Burns argued that it meant that if it's a protocol and not the UK's proposed legislation, which was the threat to the peace process. Yesterday, Vice President of Sinn Féin, Michelle O'Neill, said the efforts to resurrect the Northern Ireland Assembly in Stormont will continue after the DUP blocked a second attempt to elect a new speaker. Two nominees for the role, Ulster Unionist Party's Mike Nesbitt and Patsy McGlone from the SDLP, both failed to secure the necessary cross-community support from members of the Assembly, the MLAs. The plenary session of the Assembly was then suspended as business cannot be carried out without a speaker. MLAs were in the chamber on Monday after Sinn Féin's recall petition to elect a speaker and deputy speakers and to appoint the First Minister and Deputy First Minister. After the session, Michelle O'Neill told the media in the Great Hall, "We had a second attempt today to try to get things up and running, but unfortunately the DUP standoff continues." Okay, more on Europe. Today we've learned that Croatia is ready to join the Eurozone. The European Commission said today, Wednesday, paving the way for the Balkan country to adopt the euro from the start of 2023 and become the 20th European state to use the currency. Once the Commission's assessment is approved by EU leaders in June this month, EU finance ministers will then set in July the exchange rate at which Croatia's currency, the kuna, will be converted to the euro, and that will happen on the 1st of January 23. Croatia will then have 6 months for practical preparations for the currency switch. Today, the European Commission has concluded that Croatia is ready to adopt the euro on the 1st of January 2023, bringing the number of euro member states to 20, the EU executive arm said in a statement. In order to adopt the euro, Croatia, a member of the EU since 2013, had to fulfil criteria of price and exchange rate stability, budget deficit and public debt, and long-term interest rates, all measured against EU benchmarks. The EU Commission also examined its economic integration and convergence with the rest of the EU zone, including balance of payments trends and the integration of its product, labour and financial markets, and verified that its central bank laws are compatible with European laws from the European Central Bank, which is based in Frankfurt. Okay, how do you decarbonise rail? The first phase of a rail decarbonisation scheme to electrify the Fife route has been approved to move to its construction phase. The scheme has been developed by Transport Scotland and Network Rail, will commence with the electrification of a section between Haymarket Station and Dalmeny, which is south of the Fourth Rail Bridge. Construction work is expected to get underway on the estimated £55 million scheme on the 1st of on June 2022, that's this month, and it's due to be completed by December 24. It forms part of a rolling programme that's expected to see electrification extended to Dundee and Aberdeen. Transport Secretary Jenny Gilruth said it's great news that the first phase of the Fife electrification project is expected to start this month, as this will make a significant difference to passenger and freight services in the future. Delivery of the Fife decarbonisation project will support the introduction of new rolling stock through partial electrification of the route. It will also help towards the delivery of a rail decarbonisation action plan, which will see the removal of all diesel from passenger services by 2035. Jenny Gilruth also said the development work is also being progressed on Borders electrification and on procuring new rolling stock, which shows we're fully focused on rail decarbonisation. She said, our commitment is securing jobs in the rail design and delivery sector, as well as providing a stream of work for the supply chain. Okay, so that's electrification coming to Fife and eventually the rest of the East Coast, Now a story about households in Scotland and some rural areas who have to depend on private water supplies. In anticipation of prolonged dry conditions this summer, the Scottish Government is implementing an emergency scheme that will stand ready to provide bottled water to households affected in the event of shortages. The Government is also leading a pilot project with the assistance of Scottish Water, Aberdeenshire Council and Consumer Scotland to understand what opportunities are available to extend the public water networks to connect with households reliant on private supplies. £20 million will be invested in this parliamentary term to support the programme. With over one-third of Scotland's 22,000 private water supplies, the initiative will be piloted in Aberdeenshire first, with a view to rolling it out over the rest of Scotland later. The Environment Minister, Mary McCallan, said, it's clear that climate change is affecting Scotland and the availability of water. In recent times, prolonged dry weather has resulted in many private supplies running dry much earlier in the year, causing distress and hardship to households and businesses across Scotland, particularly in rural communities. She said, in addition to taking action to prevent climate change, we must do all we can to adapt and mitigate its effects. This is why we're putting in place emergency support now, as well as investing £20 million to begin building the resilience of our private water supplies for the future. Any households on private water supplies who experience a loss of water due to water scarcity should contact their local authority. Okay, our final story tonight is new guidance on visiting adult care homes. The new guidance reinforces the expectation that people in adult care homes should be able to see their friends and family without restrictions. The guidance has now been published. The refreshed Open with Care guidelines say that people in care homes should be able to see their friends and family without restrictions, such as limits on how often visits can take place or on how many different visitors a person can have. Booking systems for families should only be required when a home is managing a COVID-19 outbreak. Where there is an outbreak, residents should still be supported to see one of the 3 named visitors. To reinforce the guidance, the Care Inspectorate will receive an additional £186,000 this year and £90,000 in 2023 to support visiting rights, including dedicated resources for care homes. The Minister for Social Care, Kevin Stewart, today met staff and residents and relatives in the Erskine Park home in Bishopton, Renfrewshire, to see how easing restrictions had made it easier for residents to have contact with loved ones both in and out of the home. Mr. Stewart said, the restrictions on visiting introduced earlier on in the pandemic were necessary to protect staff and residents and to curb the spread of the virus. But now I'm under no illusions as to just how difficult and painful that has been for staff, residents and their loved ones. We are pleased, he said, to be in a position to move to a new normal, with the latest Open with Care guidance setting out much less restrictive measures in care homes. And that's our last story for tonight, a short programme. Scotland at 7 will be back tomorrow with my colleague Andrew Wilson. And I'm just going to leave you with news of our appeal, our fundraising appeal. Broadcasting Scotland is supported by our volunteer staff and also by the cash we get from our donors. We are this month launching a new fundraiser. The standard long-run fundraiser is set aside just now, and we are announcing a very important new short-term fundraiser. And basically what it means is this month, with big bills to pay, we simply need a lot of money to come in. In fact, just to concentrate your minds on that, really we need a total of £20,000 in the next 2 weeks. If we don't get that money, it will simply not be possible for us to pay the bills here. So that means £1,500 per day. So we're asking all of our supporters, if you can contribute anything extra, then that's going to help a lot. But the other thing you can all do, and I hope you will help with this, is to pass it on, to let people know that Broadcasting Scotland is here. It's our mission to be an independent broadcaster for Scotland, covering the news that Scotland needs without the kind of bias you get from London-based broadcasters. We think that's important to Scotland, particularly as the Scottish Government is committed to having the independence referendum within the lifetime of this Parliament, and that may in fact be next year. So independent broadcasting, I think, is not a luxury. I think it's essential. But without that money, without something like £1,500 coming in every day for the next 14 days, we simply have more money going out than we have coming in at the moment. So it's in your hands, really. So thanks for watching. And thank you, of course, to those of you who are contributing to Broadcasting Scotland. If you can help, you'll find our crowdfunder on the website there, www.broadcastingscotland.scot. Click on the donate button, please, and help us to make the kind of programmes we think Scotland needs. Not just Scotland at 7. We also do the Sunday lunchtime show, the full Scottish, and today we managed to do a broadcast covering the First Minister's questions. We hope to do more programmes like that, but at the moment, what we need to do is to survive the month of June. The next 2 weeks are crucial. Thank you for your help. Thank you for watching. I'm Hugh Stewart. Scotland at 7 will be back tomorrow with Andrew Wilson. Good night now.